Welcome back to Math 103. This is video number 16 on growth and finance. The APY, the annual percentage yield of an investment, also known as the effective interest rate, is the rate at which the investment actually grows in 1 year, the actual percentage growth in 1 year. So to return to our example of Bank A and Bank B, if Bank A has a certain APR and a certain compounding frequency, and Bank B compounds only once a year, but it wants to be competitive with Bank A, it wants to attract customers the way Bank A does, then we can ask the following. What annual interest rate at Bank B gives your money the same actual performance as at Bank A? The answer to that question is the APY of Bank A. Equivalently, we could ask, what annual interest rate does Bank B have to offer so that your money grows by the same overall amount over the course of a full year as at Bank A? Right? This is always in terms of the performance over a full year. The answer to this question of the interest rate that Bank B needs to offer to keep up in its performance with Bank A, that is the APY of Bank A. In our previous example with the specific numbers, Bank A offered an APY of 4.5%, but it compounded monthly, and the overall effect, the overall impact on your money was to cause it to grow by 4.594%. Okay, that 4.594%, that is the APY of Bank A. Another way to say it, in general, not with specific numbers, is that if Bank A multiplies your account balance 12 times during the year by a monthly growth factor of 1 plus I, this has the same effect as multiplying once by the 1 year growth factor, 1 plus I to the 12. We can then ask, what annual interest rate does that 1 year growth factor translate into? That also is the APY of Bank A. In this narrative about Bank A and Bank B that compounds only once per year has equivalent APR and APY. Those notions are the same thing for a bank that compounds only once per year. But for Bank A, which does not compound only once per year, this distinction between APR and APY is very important. APYs are important because they enable us to make apples-to-apples comparisons between different transactions, between different accounts, between different credit card offers. Here's an example. Suppose that 3 different credit cards, Amplex, Fleesa, and Schmeister card, all charge 24% interest, that's APR, on outstanding balances. But Amplex, which amplifies your debt, compounds interest quarterly, Fleesa, because they fleece you, compounds interest monthly, and Schmeister card, because they're a bunch of Schmeisters, compounds interest weekly. Any resemblance to the names of actual credit card companies is purely coincidental. The task to compare these offers is to find the APY for each credit card and use the APY to make an apples-to-apples comparison and determine which one is the best choice for the cardholder. Because we're told that Amplex compounds quarterly, that means that each quarter it multiplies the current account balance, however much that is, by the quarterly growth factor. That's 1 plus APR converted into a quarterly rate by being divided by 4. So notice it's not the 1 plus 0.24 that's being divided by the 4, it's just the 0.24 which is divided by 4. So that's 1 plus 0.06. In other words, the quarterly growth is 6% every quarter. So every quarter, Amplex multiplies by 1.06, which means, in turn, that over the full year, it multiplies by 1.06 to the 4th. There are 4 separate acts of multiplying your account balance by 1.06. That's the same, those 4 separate multiplications by 1.06, that is the same as multiplying once by 1.2625. And that translates into an APY of 26.25%. Let's stop and think what that actually means in practice. So they advertise a 24% APR. Nominally, they're charging you 24% interest, but when you look at the effect of quarterly compounding, your debt actually increases, it actually grows by 26.25% over the course of a full year. That is actually rather a significant difference, and it's important to understand this. There is a law that requires them to report this number somewhere in the fine print, But you have to be aware that there is this distinction. You might not think to look, and most people probably don't look, in the fine print to find this number. What about FLISA? I encourage you to pause the video for a moment and try to work this out on your own before continuing. We're told that FLISA compounds monthly. That means that every month it takes the monthly growth factor, 1 plus 0.24 over 12, that is 1.02, and it multiplies your account balance by 1.02. So every month, your account balance, your debt that is growing by 2%. It's growing by a factor of 1.02. That means that over the course of a full year, your account balance is multiplied by this 1.02 12 separate times, 12 months in a year, and that turns out to equal 1.2682. So that means that this 0.2682 is the new growth part of this one-year growth factor, and that is precisely the APY. Your debt is actually growing by this factor and therefore increasing by 26.82%. Once again, they advertised a 24% APR, and that was a true statement, but when you take into account the effect of the monthly compounding, the amount that your debt really increases over a full year is this higher percentage. We have the following results thus far for Amplex and FLISA. We just need to know about Schmeister-Card, which compounds weekly. So before going on to the next video, find the APY for Schmeister-Card and determine which of the three credit cards is the best choice for the cardholder.